Kevin Saal, our guest, Wichita State's athletic director, kind enough to join us on a regular basis once per month to talk Shocker athletics. Right, Kevin?
That's absolutely right. You got to sit back, pick up the spin, and do your best with it. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show, guys.
Well, we're always happy to talk with you. We're on the cusp of men's and women's basketball. You got a volleyball team that's going well. You've got cross country and tennis and golf and everything in full swing. That volleyball team starting to raise some eyebrows. How good are they?
They certainly they're doing a great job, and I think similar to last year, you're starting to see that progressive improvement throughout the season. They've done a really good job. At one point, we were in the mid to upper 70s in the NCAA's RPI, which is one of the important statistical measures for postseason play. And as of yesterday, we're sitting at 48, so you're about 8 to 10 spots out of being serious consideration for an at-large if you don't win the conference championship. They sit at 9-1 in league, 15-5 overall, and right now we're basically tied with SMU. We each have one loss. The tiebreaker currently would go to SMU based on the number of sets won in the two matches that we played them. So obviously we got a half of the conference season still to go. A lot of volleyball to play, so a lot more can happen, but certainly love where we're at right now and appreciate everything our young women and Coach Lamb and the staff are doing to put us in a good spot.
So I don't mean to get too in the micro with you, but we had Paul Mills on the show a couple weeks ago, and he said there were no eligibility concerns, I think maybe is the word he said, but without Bijan Cortez in the close scrimmage, I think Ronnie DeGray was held out. In particular, those two guys. I know DeGray needs a waiver. What is their eligibility status, and are there any other eligibility concerns with the Shocker men?
No, we have to appreciate that question. We have two ongoing eligibility waivers. Not necessarily eligibility. They're not categorized as eligibility waivers, but we have two waivers that are ongoing with Bijan and Ronnie, and obviously we're working to get those to conclusion as quickly as we can, and can't go into great detail, but obviously they're currently not available yet for competition.
Is Bijan a two-time transfer, or what does his have to deal with, if you can say?
Well, without getting into too much specifics, his is not a transfer issue, and it's not necessarily an eligibility issue either. We're just working through some elements in terms of how his time closed down in Oklahoma and what's that look like for us here. We've been working on it for quite some time, and I would extend great appreciation and gratitude to Corey Torgerson and our basketball staff. They've worked many of hours on both those waivers, and obviously we'll do our very best and understand that ultimately the decision will rest with the respective committees at the NCAA.
Kevin Saal, our guest, Wichita State's athletic director, kind enough to join us on a regular basis once per month to talk Shocker athletics. So with the NIL and the transfer portal, and we're all getting accustomed to all that now, what has that done to the support staff, not just at Wichita State, but nationally? How many more people are athletic departments hiring, if any? I'm just curious to know what that does to staffing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's mixed in terms of how you look at that, Bob, throughout the league, because the NCAA's two sets of guidance that they issued, one was in July of 21 and the other, I believe, was in October of 22. That's the current guidance that we're operating under now, currently. And it specifically states that athletic departments are not to arrange for NIL opportunities, to seek them, to plug student athletes into those. That really is the job of the third-party collective, and that continues to be the case for us. What you are starting to see throughout the country is the back-end components of the logging and tracking of NIL activity between athletics departments and their respective collectives. The education on the tax implications for that because it is taxable income. Those are the elements that you're starting to see departments invest in, and we are able to achieve much of those two elements through our relationship with Open Doors, who is a software partner in that NIL space with us that we signed on with last summer. So I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. I would leave open an opportunity for Wichita State to hire somebody specific within the NIL space, but myself and one other individual in our department have pretty good focus on NIL in terms of making sure our student athletes are positioned well, that we maintain the integrity of the institution and the eligibility of our student athletes.
So, going back to Shocker basketball, I think it's been a breath of fresh air for Shocker fans to hear Paul Mills talk about analytics and metrics and caring about KenPom rankings and all the little things that I think a lot of fans appreciate. So is that kind of a coach-by-coach thing as far as you are concerned from a position as athletic director? If they want it, they can use it, or has that kind of become a little bit of a philosophy throughout the athletic department to get into those deeper numbers and find, advantages where you can?
Jeff, I think that's a really good question. And I think that at the end of the day, at a really high level, that elite performance, success, championships, however you define elite, really comes from a great attention to detail. And that's an attention to detail in the day-to-day walk for our student athletes, how we recruit, what does an official visit look like on campus, the analytics in terms of evaluating and teaching and practices and film and scouting, the national analytics, whether you're into the predictive metrics or other metrics. There's about 5 or 6 of them in college basketball, as you well know. And I just think that if you're going to maximize your program and achieve the goals that we have set forth, whether it's our core values, our student athlete experience, or our competitive excellence, you got to really pay attention to those details in every area of the program. And so that's what excites me about Coach Mills, this staff, our other coaches as well, is there's an elite attention to detail in terms of trying to be able to maximize and grow our programs every day.
Final moments here with Kevin Saal, Wichita State Athletic Director. So we need to give some time to the Wichita State women's program as well. They have an exhibition coming up very soon, and their roster, I see a couple of Wichitans on that roster, and I know that Terry Nooner, who played at KU, Antoine Scales on his staff, certainly coached here at the high school level very successfully at Wichita South for a long time. I know that's been a focal point. Do you expect that in-state recruiting to continue to get better for Shocker women's basketball?
That's certainly been a conversation dating back to during our hiring process with Coach Nooner, and as he was assembling his staff, was incredibly excited about this staff from Brooke to Antoine, Coach Nooner, Nick. They do a great job. They're plugged into the Missouri Phenom AAU program, which means they're plugged into a lot of other AAU programs as well. As you mentioned, Coach Scales had an unbelievable run, 6 straight state championships at Wichita South, and I think he won the first 4. We have some local talent in Treasure and Ella. Treasure is a young lady that was a Division II All-American at Emporia State. If I'm not mistaken, we recruited against Oregon, and I believe it was Purdue to convince her to be a Shocker. And she has a lot of family in Wichita, and Coach Scales obviously coached her in high school as well, so that certainly helped. And I just love the intentionality with which Coach Nooner has put together the staff. They have a lot of fun, and they work really hard, and the expectations are very high. But if you spend any time around our women's basketball program, you can tell that there is a very unique and special family feel there. It'll take us a little time to build, as it does with anything that's worthwhile and that's successful and lasts, but really encouraged by where we're headed. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that's spreading throughout the fan base as well. I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've sold 50 or more season tickets to our women's basketball, new season tickets to women's basketball. So we'll continue to work hard at that. I think they are certainly turning an eye within our community.
Shocker women with an exhibition next Wednesday evening at Koch Arena against Missouri Southern. The men with an exhibition this Sunday, right? At Koch
Yeah, that's
Arena.
right. We got Rogers State Sunday at 1 o'clock.
And I just wanted to mention before we let you go, I've looked at the schedule and I've seen that you've moved up. I don't know if you've moved up game times or the AAC has recommended moving up game times, but there's a lot of 6 p.m., 6:30 starts. And when you're my age, I appreciate that. Thank you. Did you do that, Kevin?
No, well, it's a team effort. I will tell you that the TV schedule is somewhat complex. It really starts for all of the basketball programs in the country, really, regardless of the league. It starts with the NBA schedule. And as the networks work through the NBA schedule, then they shift to the college game. And we didn't really receive our television. And when I say television, that's linear television on the traditional cable networks, ESPN, ESPN2, U. Those didn't really come out until late September, early October. And so it leaves us in a little bit of a bind, but there's certainly situations that we can't control based on what happens nationally. So we're really excited about that, guys. I did some notes. It might take me a minute to pull those up, but we have 16 games on linear TV, CBS, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. That's 16 of our 31. That's a really good number. Those times are selected by the television networks and the league, and then we have 13 games on ESPN Plus. Those times are selected by Shocker Athletics, and so we sat together as an external team. Again, this is a team of 8, 10, 12 folks, and we had a really in-depth conversation about historical game times, what was best for our programs, our fans. And so collectively, we decided to be able to maximize what is important to us, our families, to have an inclusive environment, a great game day experience. We decided to shift game times because our historical data shows that those are the better attended times, and we certainly want to be able to present a first-class game day experience not only for our student athletes but our fans.
All right, good stuff. My son wanted me to ask you about your Astros.
No, I didn't necessarily want him to ask you.
I'm a nicer guy than he is.
But are you going to be able to find it in your heart to root for Texas in the World Series?
Well, I grew up a Royals fan, so other than 85 and 2015, it was a pretty dry 30-year stretch there. So certainly have been a big fan of the Royals, and I also grew up a Cubs fan, but spent time at TCU and made it to a bunch of Texas Rangers games, have had student athletes at my different stops that have played for the Rangers. So, yeah, I'm pulling for the Rangers a little bit, but it's certainly been a really interesting postseason. A lot of fun to watch.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
For the opportunity, guys. Have a great day and go Shockers.
Kevin Saal, Wichita State athletic director.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. Paul Mills is the Astros fan.
You led me to.
Gosh dang it. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Sorry, Kevin?
Yeah.
I'm the one that asked him about being an Astros. He's probably thinking, man, that guy's senile. And you're over there. Yeah, he's an Astros fan.
Well, I was thinking it's Paul Mills who's an Astros fan. So that's my bad. Paul Mills.
You made me look like an idiot.
Well, you do that plenty on your own, so me doing it a time or two doesn't hurt anybody.
Well, I want people to know you're the idiot this time.
Yeah, I thought he was an Astros fan, but it's Paul Mills.
And he did a nice job kind of escaping that question. But what a terrible look.
My deepest apologies
to me,
to Kevin Saal,
and to me,
and the Kansas City Royals organization, and the Cubs, who apparently has
everybody but the Astros. We'll be back in a minute. Hour number 2. We'll play a game coming up soon. Back in a minute.